Hey everybody, welcome back to another Michael's Community Classroom. My name is Allie W. I'm here from Yarnspirations. We're so excited to be here teaching another really fun holiday project here with Tamara Kelly of Moogly Blog. So excited to be here. Really fun project today. If this is your first class with us, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I will be helping get those questions over to Tamara throughout the live. We'll try and get to as many as we possibly can. And just a reminder that today's class is being recorded, so you'll be able to come back to it tomorrow and rewatch, pause, rewind. Awesome. Well, I'm going to pass things over to you, Tamara.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Allie. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. It is, of course, December as I'm recording this, so we're thinking about holiday items. So today, what I'm going to be demonstrating for you is the Red Heart Santa gift card holder. I'm going to hold it up to the camera right here. You can see this is really cute. It's also a really simple project that's great for beginners. So if you've only recently learned how to crochet, you can definitely whip these up for the holiday season. As you can see, it's made to hold a standard gift card or credit card or whatever you want it to hold. Another cute idea would be to put business cards in it. So you may have gotten a link to the pattern when you signed up for the class. If not, I believe they'll be adding that to the chat if you need it. But like I say, this is really a very simple pattern. So if you are a beginner and I end up going a little too quick for you and you want to watch it on the replay, remember on YouTube, you can always use the gear icon to slow things down or speed them up if you're a more experienced crocheter. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the overhead camera here so we can start demoing. There we are. I don't like to move it before it's, too soon there because it sort of blocks the screen. So like I say, this is the pattern we're making right here. And this is a printout here from Yarnspirations. And as you can see, we're actually making two pieces that we then basically seam up together using our crochet hook. So to make this pattern, we're going to be using Red Heart with Love in 3 colors. There's the red, the yellow, and the black. Can't quite get them all on screen. Great big skeins. So if you do want to make these, if you pick up this yarn, you can make quite a few of these little guys from those skeins. Probably cover the whole family for the whole year. So let's go ahead and look at our instructions. And it says we start with our color A, which is our red right here. So to begin, we're going to use our Red Heart with Love in, I believe this is the Holly Berry colorway. And we're also using a USF, which is a 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. Those are the only tools you need to make this besides scissors and a yarn needle to weave in your ends. So to begin, let me try and get a little centered there. There we go. We're going to begin with a slip knot on our hook. So if you haven't made a slip knot before, you can lay the yarn right over the top there, like in a loop, and then bring that yarn behind the loop. And then you can just stick your hook right underneath there, like so. And then pull down on those ends and you've made a slip knot. There we are. It's a little harder to see in the red yarn, but hopefully that gave you an idea. And if you can't make a slip knot, you can always just tie a really loose double knot on your hook for this project. After that, we're going to begin with a chain of 17. So to chain, we yarn over, we bring the yarn over our hook from the back over the top, and then we just pull that through that loop. So that's one chain. We don't count the loop that's on our hook, we just count the one we've just made. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. There we are. So that should be about 17 chains there. And then we're going to turn and work back into those chains to make single crochets. But we don't want to work into the chain that's closest to our hook because we want to leave that as our turning chain. So we skip that one. That's going to lift us up for the height of our stitches. And then we start working into the chain after that. Now for this project, I'm going to recommend that you work under the back hump of each chain. So if you look at a chain right here, pull it up, try and close here, you can see there's a V. two loops there. That's kind of considered the tops of the chain. If I flip it over to the back, there's that one hump right in the middle. And those are the loops we want to work under for this project. It's going to make seaming it up in the end just quite a bit easier, actually. So we want to skip that one right there that's closest to our hook and go to the one after that. So what we do is we insert our hook right under that loop, like so. Then we yarn over again, pull that yarn up and through, and then yarn over and pull through two to make a single crochet. So then we do it again in the next chain. We go under that back hump of the next chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through two. So if you continue doing that all the way across, at the end, you should have a total of 16 single crochets. So I know I might be going really slow for those of you who already know how to crochet, but as I said, this is a really good beginner project. So I wanted to make sure we went over some of those very basic items. Allie, can you tell me, are there any questions I can answer while I continue across with my single crochets here?
Well, let me find my chat window.
Okay, sure.
No questions right now.
Okay, good. It's hard to say. So go ahead and, let us know where you're tuning in from, but also let us know if you're a beginner or if you're an experienced crocheter. If we don't have any brand new crocheters in the group, I can go a little quicker, but certainly if, there are any beginners here, I want to make sure I go over every bit of it just as thoroughly as I can. So go ahead and chime in the chat. Okay, looks like we've got lots of beginners. So like I say, if I go through something a little too fast, there will be a replay so you can watch again. But I'm coming to the end of my row here, so I'm going to go slow down since I did see quite a few beginners pop up there, so we can make our last single crochet of this row together. And single crochets are all we're going to be making for this pattern. By the way, you don't need to learn any other stitch. So we've got that last chain right there before the slip knot. So I insert my hook under that loop, grab my yarn, pull it over my hook so that the hook grabs the working yarn, which is the end attached to the skein. Pull that loop up and through, up and through. Then yarn over with the yarn again. You can either place it over your hook or you can grab it with your hook. Everybody does it a little different. And then pull that loop through your other two loops. There we are. So now we're back to just one loop on our hook, and there we've made a single crochet. So to count those stitches, we can come back here and look at our row that we've just made of single crochets, and you can count those little V's right on top here. So each one of those V's is a stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So again, this is a tip for beginners in particular, but honestly, stitch markers, which you'll see right here, are one of my favorite tools for crocheting with. These are like little plastic safety pins that aren't very sharp, which is why they're great. They won't pierce your yarn, but they will help you keep track of your stitches. So what I recommend doing is taking a stitch marker and putting one in the beginning, the first stitch right there, right under those two loops. So we know that's the first stitch of the row we just made. And then you can put another one in the last stitch of the row. So I'm going to pull my hook out of the way here so I can do that. There is that last stitch. So I just want to put my stitch marker right in there. And that will help us keep track and make sure that we're not missing that last stitch or skipping over it or adding a stitch where we don't need to, so that we can maintain our stitch count and get really straight sides on our project. So that was row 1. Rows 2 through 4 are all the same. We chain 1. Oops, missed my yarn there. There we go. Chain 1. So we yarn over and pull that loop through like so. Now we've made, let me pull that out of the way there because I think the camera's trying to focus on it instead of the yarn. There we go. So that chain is going to lift us up to the height that we need, sort of like a little ladder, so we can make our second row. After we've chained, we need to flip our work over like so. Just turn it just like you would turn the page of a book so that we can work back into those other stitches we just made, working across our previous row. So I've got my stitch marker right there, so I know that's my first stitch. So I'm going to go under those top 2 loops with my hook now that we're working into a row of stitches rather than a row of chains. I want to go under, try and get good focus here. You want to go under those top 2 loops of the stitch, then yarn over, pull the loop up and through, and give it a little tug if it wants to stick. Yarn over and pull through both of those loops. Again, just a single crochet, but now we're working them into stitches instead of into the chain. So since that's my first stitch for row 2, I'm going to go ahead and put a stitch marker in it, like so. So now I know that stitch is my first stitch of this row. Then I can put my hook back in the loop there, and I snug that loop down so it's not super tight, but I want it to be able to wiggle a little bit, but I don't want it too loose. That's something that's just kind of takes some practice, all part of developing your tension. So then we go under the next stitch. So you can kind of look and see. We can look from the top and find those 2 loops, or from the front, you can kind of see right there where there's a space where all those stitches sort of come together. That's where you want to insert your hook. So you can check and make sure that's right by looking at your hook again and making sure those top 2 loops of the stitch are on top of your hook. So then you can yarn over, pull that loop up and through. I keep saying up and 3, I don't know why. Up and through. And then you've got 2 loops on your hook, so you can yarn over and pull through 2. And that's another single crochet. So we're just going to continue doing that on across. And like I say, really, it's almost like your hook can feel that's where it wants to go through. As long as you've got those 2 loops there on top, you're in the right spot. And we just continue to single crochet all the way across. So Allie, are there any questions now that I could answer, do you think? I saw there, like I say, there were quite a few beginners popped up there and a few experienced people. Like I say, if you need to watch it back, you can always watch it on fast speed if needed.
I don't see any questions right at the moment.
Okay.
I did drop in a link to our Crochet 101 class that we taught this summer.
Great.
And for those of you who are a beginner and really need a refresher on some of these skills, this is a great place to start as well. And I do think, like Tamara said, it's a great time to just watch today's class and then come back to the recording once it's available tomorrow.
Yeah, like I say, it's it's actually hard sometimes to hold tension. Funny thing on yarn, if you go too slowly, almost. So it's one of those things. I go as slowly as I can, but sometimes you need to use video trickery to get it a little bit slower. So here we are again. We've come to all the way to the end of row 2. I'm just working single crochets in each stitch. I know that's my last stitch because it's got my stitch marker in it. So I just want to go ahead and put 1 stitch right in there. Let's see. There we go. And you can do it with the stitch marker in there, or you can take it out first, whatever works for you. I'm going to go ahead and take it out now because it's done its job for that row. And there we have it. Now we've got 16 stitches for row 2. Excuse me. So to begin row 3, we're going to go ahead and chain 1 again because it's just like row 2. Then we turn our project over to work back the other direction and single crochet in each stitch. So I can put that stitch marker, or excuse me, that hook right under those top 2 loops of the first stitch there and make a single crochet. Then I can put my stitch marker back in that stitch. So I can have it marked here for row 3. So as I said, rows 3 and 4 are exactly the same as row 2. And really almost the entire project is exactly like this. It's just rows of single crochets, 16 stitches per row. The trick is that we'll need to change colors to create the black stripe through the middle. And then we also need to make the cute yellow buckle. So that one will be a little different and have another new little skill for you. But, and I just checking, it is still all single crochets though. So still 1 stitch. We're just going to be working them in the round for that. So I'm just continuing to make single crochets here on across. I say it's all the same stitch. We go under those top 2 loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. There we are. Now I did see a question about yarn. I'm using Red Heart with Love. If you wanted to substitute Red Heart Super Saver would be a great one for this. Or I think honestly, Lily Sugar and Cream or Red Heart Scrubby, really any worsted weight yarn, those are gonna be the best bet for this project. You want to make sure they're all the same weight, which means they all have that 4 symbol on it right there. That'll tell you the weight of the yarn. It sounds funny because when you weight, you think about when we talk about weight, you normally would think about ounces or pounds or things like that. But for yarn, it's these little symbols right here. It's a 4. That means it's a medium weight yarn. So that's what you'd want to look for this project. And the reason we want to make sure that the yarn is the same size is so that our finished project ends up the same size. If we used a thinner yarn, it would be a lot smaller. If we used a thicker yarn, it would be a lot bigger, and then it wouldn't be the right size for our gift card. So I have made all the stitches here for row 3, and we've got one more row, row 4, that is made in the red. So again, we chain 1. So I've got that last loop on my hook, yarn over and pull through to chain 1, then turn our work over to work back the other direction and work a single crochet in each stitch across. Now, if you are a beginner, you may want to take a little pen along with your paper that you've got your pattern on and actually make a little mark every time you finish a row so that you know exactly where you are in the pattern. But after I finish this row, I also want to show you how to count your rows so that you can look at your work and actually sort of read your work and see where you're at. So like I said, all single crochets on across. So we're going to work those on across our project. And at the end of row 4, that's where we finish with our color A. So that is our red color here. Then we're going to switch to the black to make the stripe. So to do that, if you are an experienced crocheter, I recommend that you float that the red color along the side. However, if you're a beginner, it's probably going to be easier to cut that yarn. So to do that, what you would do is you would go ahead and make that last stitch for row 4. And then literally take your scissors. Oops, my scissors got a little tangled on another hook there. And cut the yarn. Break the yarn, cut the yarn, fasten off. All those basically mean the same thing when you're reading a pattern. So now to make sure that that loop doesn't come undone, because if we just pulled our hook out of there, we could literally just pull those stitches right out. We don't want to do that. We want to instead yarn over one last time with that end of yarn and just pull it right through that loop. And we give that a little tug, and that secures that stitch so it won't come out. So now I can go ahead and put that down and I'll pull up my black. But before I do that, because at this point you'll want to know exactly how far you are in the pattern, let's talk about counting your stitches and rows. Now the stitches we've talked about, you can look at that top V to count those, but counting the rows for single crochet, and stitch is going to be a little different here too, but for single crochet, what you have here, if you can see, there's sort of a valley in between right there and right there. That might be a little easier actually to see on this one that hasn't been sewn to anything yet. You can kind of see the line right there. For single crochet, those lines come every 2 rows. So I flip it over here, you can see that line right there. That means there's 2 rows there, 2 rows there. There are the 4 rows that we work before our black line of stitching. So hopefully that will help you keep track a little bit too. You can also look at the pictures provided in the pattern. You can see pretty clearly what that looks like right there. So now we're ready for our black stripe. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the black red heart with love right here. And I'm going to find that end again. And I recommend, I didn't mention this at the beginning because I didn't realize how many beginners we had. You want to make sure to leave a good 4 to 6 inches at least to weave in your ends when you're done. If you start everything too close to the end, you won't be able to weave it in, and then your stitches could actually come undone from use. Probably not as much of a concern with a project like this as opposed to say a blanket, but still something you want to be aware of. So I just went ahead and flipped my little gift card holder so far over because I've got my tail end here that I cut. So I know that that was where I finished that row. So now I need to flip it over, turn, just like I would have done after chaining. Then I'm going to go ahead and join the color B to that first stitch. So I'm going to get that stitch marker out of the way there. That was still in the row before. But I'm just going to put my hook, let me get that a little closer there. I'll put my hook right under the top 2 loops there of that very first stitch. And I'm going to yarn over with my new color and pull that loop up and through. Just pull it up a little bit, yarn over again and pull through that. And now we've got our chain 1. So now I can go right back down into that same stitch and yarn over and pull up a loop. There we are, a little harder to see in the black. There we go. And then yarn over again and pull through 2 to finish that single crochet. So now you can see it's nice and attached. Our stitch is made. I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker in that first stitch of this row. And then we've got these ends hanging out here on the side. We will weave these in at the end before we assemble our project. And that's where you'll want to use a yarn needle. Other than that, it's rows 5 and 6 that are, again, just single crochet, but now the only difference is we're doing it in black yarn instead of in red yarn. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. So Allison, are there any questions now? Might sneak a sip of water here too.
So there actually was a question about your hook. Do you find that a rubberized hook like this is easier to use?
I think it is for me, but I spend a lot of hours crocheting. I certainly began my crocheting career with the more standard aluminum hooks like I have right here. This one is a Susan Bates. They're fantastic. They're great. These last forever. I actually have some of these from my husband's grandmother that have been passed down to me, and they are quite precious. It's pretty fun, actually. Some of them are even stamped with 10 cents on it, and I don't know that I've ever seen a crochet hook sell for 10 cents. But I do find these are nice if you're going to put a lot of hours into crocheting. But everybody holds their hook a little differently. You'll notice I hold mine kind of more like a pencil, and I tend to twirl my hook a little bit. Some people hold their hooks overhand or like a knife, and they may find a different style of hook works best for them. Although this one does have a flat thumb grip that a lot of people who do use this hold like. So I recommend if you get into crocheting that you try a few different hooks. Pick up a couple different hooks in your favorite size or a size that you use a lot and give them a whirl. It can change your gauge and tension a little bit, and sometimes that can be for the better. It might allow your hand to relax a little bit more. I think a lot of times when people are learning to crochet, they tend to work really tightly. So having different styles of hooks can cause your hand to relax a little differently and hold it a little differently, and might actually change the way your stitching looks too.
Awesome. So we did actually have 2 questions come up. Could you show us how to carry the yarn instead of just cutting it as well?
Sure. Let me think. Yes. I'm trying to, how best to do that. Let me think. Yes, I will. Let me get across this next row and I will show you how I would have done that. Basically, the difference that I already would have made is that rather than cutting that red yarn, when I got to the last stitch, I'll go ahead and just actually demo that right here. Pretending this was the last stitch of the red and I was ready to switch to the black, I would have yarned over and pulled up that loop. So I have 2 loops left on the hook. And then instead of finishing that stitch before I cut the yarn, I would have grabbed that new color. I'm just going to use this little tail end here for example, and yarned over with that and finished that stitch with my new color, like so. So that would have been the one difference so far. I'll show you the other difference here when we get to the other end of this row. But now I have to, there we go, get that pulled back out of there. So, and again, since we do have some beginners here, I'll go ahead and mention, if you do make a mistake in crochet, one of the really great things is that you can just totally undo it by pulling on the yarn attached to the skein. Those stitches will come right out and you can start again. Just look for that last loop coming out the top of the last stitch. Stick your hook back in there, pull it down to the right size, and you're ready to go again. So I will get these single crochets here remade real quick. And then, like I say, we're ready for row 6. This was row 5. All done, ready for row 6. So we chain 1 again, just as we did before, and turn and come back the other direction. It can be a little bit harder to see where your hook goes with black yarn. I know it's harder to see on camera. It's actually not too bad for me right here in person. And I think that's because I have really good bright lighting. So I recommend anytime you're working with black yarn that you have a nice, a lamp next to you basically, so that you've got some good lighting, because it can be a little trickier to see. In addition, sort of like before we were talking about, where you can sort of let your hook guide you, you can see, roughly how far apart your stitches are and say, okay, it should be right around here somewhere. And your hook should slip right into that spot. So I will continue across. I did see, since I'm just making more single crochets here, I did see a question pop up, but I couldn't read the whole thing. I don't know if you could help me out with that, Allie.
Oh, let me see.
Sorry, it looked like it was a long one. I can only see the first few words, so.
That may have been my reply.
Oh, okay.
But could you continue with the red and then cross stitch the belt over?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely you could. That would be a really great, that would give it a really neat, yeah, just a really different sort of crafty look. I think that would look pretty cool.
Awesome.
So, oh, go ahead.
And then there was a question here, and I just wanted to make sure that we got it clarified if it need be. But you definitely can use, there's just a question, do you have to have the same kind of hook? And I mean, style, up to you.
Yeah, no, you don't need to, like, you could use, a hook like this, a hook like this. I'm trying to see what else. Well, these are only two kind of hooks I happen to have on the table with me today. But I'm sure you've seen, there's dozens of different styles of hooks. The important thing for this pattern isn't the style of the hook you're using. It is the size. I'm going to see if I can get this real close up here so I can get that to focus. You see where it says F 3.75 millimeters? That's the same for both of these hooks. And what that's referring to is not the handles. It's this part down here, the straight line specifically after the taper of the hook. So if we look at this one from the side, we'll do a little quick hook anatomy lesson here. You can see that one tapers under, oops, it's hard to hold that one still. Tapers under quite severely. This one, the taper is a little more gentle, starts not quite as far back to compare. So the 3.75 millimeter is actually referring to the straight part of the shaft right here. So when you're crocheting, you'll notice as I make those loops, I'm not keeping them down here real close to the loop. I'm making sure with each stitch that I push my hook through so that the loop that I'm working with comes up here on the shaft. This is what determines the size of your loops. So you'll probably, as you continue crocheting, amass quite a collection of different sizes because it's the combination of the yarn and the hook that's going to give you the feel of the fabric. So if I were to use this same yarn to make something like a sweater, I would probably use a lot bigger hook because I want it to be soft and flowy and a little more open. We're using a pretty small hook, an F hook today with this yarn because we want it to be tight and solid for this project. I hope that answered that.
Awesome. I think that definitely helps.
Awesome.
There are a couple of questions of people that are having a little bit of challenges counting their stitches in rows.
Okay. Well, again, black yarn is probably about the worst one to try and demo this with. So let me flip it over here. And this is actually our bottom edge, but you can see right here, it looks like the top of a row. And that's why we worked into that back hump, was to get this great bottom edge here. But like I say, this bottom edge actually looks like a top edge right now. So to count each of those stitches, I'm going to try and get the camera to focus really well here because that's important so you can see what I'm doing. Look for those little V's. You can see how it looks kind of like a series of stacked V's. One right there, one right there. They're sort of nestled into each other a little bit. Each one of those V's represents a stitch. So you can always look at the top of a row, no matter what kind of stitch it is, to find those V's. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I may have moved it there, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So this one right there, don't let that fool you. That's that little turning chain right there. So again, this is why it's really handy to have those stitch markers so you know exactly where that row begins and ends. So you know exactly where to start counting. But it is those little V's at the very top that you want to look for. Like I say, a little bit harder in the black. Now for this project, we're making single crochet rows. So to count the rows, I always just look for, you can see sort of that divot, almost like a furrow. I grew up on a farm, so I'm using farm analogies, I guess. But you've got that little ditch right there that you can see where it's a little bit darker. And if you were in person, you could see there's a little bit, there we go. We can kind of see how there's a hump there and it dips down. That each one of those little sections between those two are 2 rows. So since we started with 4 rows of red, you can see we've got 1, 2. So that's 2 rows and 2 more rows. That's just for single crochet. If we were making a different project, we would need to count our rows a little bit differently. But like I say, it'd be a good idea as you're making this, if you're a beginner, to go ahead and just mark down as you're working every time you finish a row, and that will help you keep track as well. If I bring this really, really close, maybe we can kind of just take a look here. This is what single crochet stitches look like. This would be from the back and this would be from the front. So since we're working back and forth in rows, we know that's 2 rows, that's 2 more rows, and actually that's 2 more rows. So again, if you need to, when you're making yours, you can pull up the pictures provided in the pattern. And it's a little harder to see on camera, but here in person, it's a lot easier to see. You can actually see those lines and you can just compare, literally compare your work to the photo for this one. So hopefully that helps. Was there another one?
I think we're all set right now.
Okay. And I just saw somebody point something out that I totally missed when I made this, by the way, until just now. So thank you, observant person. Rows 5 and 6 are supposed to be made with half double crochets. I literally did not notice that when I was making the pattern, and I apologize. It is a slightly different stitch, but I will tell you right now, this was made with single crochets, and it looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to continue, since we've got a lot of beginners here, I'm going to say you can go ahead and just make that a black stripe with single crochets if you want to. If you know how to make half double crochets and you want to use half double crochets instead, you can. But honestly, I mean, it turned out exactly the right size, even with single crochets. So let me pull back a stitch and just demonstrate a half double crochet for those who haven't seen one before. Yeah, I apologize, you guys. I made this the other night and I totally missed that those were half double crochets, but clearly for this pattern, it doesn't matter too much. It still turned out the right size. So to make a half double crochet, the difference between that and a single crochet is that we yarn over before we insert our hook in the stitch, go into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now we've got 3 loops on our hook instead of 2, but we're still going to just yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And that's a half double crochet. I'm going to do that one more time, and then we'll just go back to our single crochets. Because like I say, for this pattern, it does work out either way. So once again, for a half double crochet, that's yarn over before you insert the hook. Insert your hook into that next stitch. Yarn over again and pull up that loop. Now with 3 loops left on the hook, you can yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And one tip for that I find makes it a lot easier is if before I pull through, I turn that hook portion down so it's facing my other work, and that way it doesn't get caught on any of those loops as I pull it on through. So a half double crochet is ever so slightly taller than a single crochet. But like I say, for this pattern, single crochet or half double crochet will work for this black stripe. I apologize for not noticing it earlier, but it worked out. So now we're at our last stitch of this row, our last black row here, row 6. So for beginners, again, we would make that last stitch and then fasten it off. But I want to demonstrate how to float that yarn up the side. So to do that, I would go into that last stitch. And I'm going to go ahead and get that stitch marker out of the way here. Yarn over, pull up our loop. And just as I was saying before, then we would yarn over with our new color to finish the stitch. Now, if I hadn't cut this yarn, it would still be coming out from about here, a little bit higher, but it would still be coming out about here. And what I would simply do is yarn over with that new yarn and pull through with it, and then continue on with that first color of yarn. What that does, get this out of the way here so you can see, it does put a little line of yarn right along the side. And if you do that, you want to make sure that you don't pull too tight on that loop, because it can crunch down those rows and just make it really tight and awkward right there. But you also don't want to leave it super loose. And that's why I say it's kind of more an advanced thing right there. Because if you leave it super loose, then when you sew together or stitch together your gift card holder, then you'll have a kind of a weird floppy loop there that might get caught on things. So we just want to wiggle it a little bit and make sure that it's not too tight, not too loose, just kind of floating basically right along the side. Then when we assemble it, we would just crochet right over that float, and it would completely disappear. The great thing is we're going to be assembling with more red yarn, so we wouldn't see that at all. But then, like I say, we could just continue crocheting right along with that red yarn. But because we're going to do it the beginner way, we are going to instead break this yarn. So I'm going to yarn over with the black to finish that last stitch, and then find my scissors, which have wandered off. There we are. That's something, scissors or hooks, they always go walking off on you, don't they? There we are. And then to secure it, I'm simply going to yarn over and pull that end through. And again, I've left a good 4 to 6 inches here so that I can weave that end in when I'm all done. So in preparation for the next row here, I want to get my stitch marker that slid under my little stand here. I'll have to get a new one. There we are, and put that in our last stitch so that we have it nice and marked. And then, since I know I'm going to be joining here in a moment, I'm going to go ahead and just turn my work over so it's facing the right way. Excuse me. Then I can put it down and pull up my red yarn. Then it's going to be exactly the same as we did when we joined the black yarn. So we want to find that stitch, sort of hold onto your yarn here so you've got some leverage on it. Insert your hook right in that very first stitch. I'm going to go ahead and move that stitch marker out of the way now that it's shown us the way. There we are. Yarn over with the new yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over again, and pull that loop through. There we are. So just a chain one basically right in that space. Then we can start single crocheting right on into that stitch and then each of the stitches across. So that is going to be basically rows 7 through 10. We're doing 4 more rows of the red single crochet rows. Double checking, yes, this one is single crochet. So again, we just stitch all the way across in each of those stitches. And now that we're back to the red, it's a little bit easier to see those. So as if you're a beginner, I recommend that as you make your single crochets, that you just take the time to kind of take a look at what each loop does as you make the stitch and how it looks at the end of a stitch. And you can see this is what a single crochet looks like from the front, and turn it over and see, that's what a single crochet looks like from the back. You can see it's got a little different look there, loops going across. So you can really sort of study your stitches as you make them, and that will help a great deal as you learn to count your stitches and rows. So I'm just making more single crochets here. Allie, do we have any other questions?
There is a question here. Could you put beads on the black row?
Ooh, you could do all kinds of things like that. Absolutely. You could have so much fun with this pattern. That's one of the great things about it. It is very basic. I mean, it's so basic that I completely read the wrong stitch for 2 rows and it still turned out. So you could have a lot of fun with this. You could absolutely play with it. I was talking about a little bit earlier about yarn weights and how you want to make sure you have the right yarn weight so that it comes out the right size to hold a gift card. But if you wanted to do this in something like Bernat Blanket, holy cow, you get like a great big envelope that you can put a whole gift in, you know, and not just a gift card, but a gift. You could have a lot of fun with it. You could probably even stuff it and make it into a pillow. So many possibilities. Absolutely. Add beads, all kinds of cool things. Excuse me. So we've worked our 16 stitches here. So we can count those to check them if we want here. Let me pull that up here. We've got our stitch marker in our first one. I wish it would, doesn't want to focus. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Again, we don't count the loop that's on our hook. So if you are a knitter who's learning to crochet, that is something that is very different. We don't count the loop on our hook, just the stitch that we've finished. So that was it for row 7. Rows 8, 9, and 10 are all the same. Chain 1, flip it over, and work back across. So as soon as we've got those made, then I will have my second piece here. I've already made one piece. So what you do when you're making these, obviously, we need 2 sides to our gift card holder. So you'll want to make 2 of these pieces. Then we'll make the yellow buckle to add to just one of them. But absolutely, if you're adding beads and having fun with it, you could add, oops, dropped my hook there. You could, you know, add buckles to both sides. Do, honestly, whatever you like to dress it up and personalize it for you. For those who know surface crochet, you could have a lot of fun with that as well. You could add some texture. You could even add an initial, you know, for the recipient, whatever you like to do. I always say the point of making things yourself is to make it your own. So feel free to dress this up or heck, change the stitches. Do it in whatever you like. So we are almost done with row 8 here. So we come to that last stitch. We've got our stitch marker in it, and we can work right into that stitch. Now, another thing you might want to consider for this pattern is as you're crocheting your stitches, you may want to work over your ends. See, we've got all these ends hanging out here that we're going to weave in with a yarn needle when we're done. Some people like to crochet over those ends to encase those ends so they don't have as much to weave in. So to do that, basically, when you go into the stitch, you hold up that end that you know you're going to have to weave in eventually, lay it over your hook. Oops, got off camera there a little bit. Sorry, we're so close up. Lay that end over your hook, and then just go ahead and make your stitch. And when you do that, it traps that end in there. Here we are. Get that centered there. It traps that end in there and sort of tucks it away, so there's a little less to weave in. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of doing that, especially if that's all you do. I'm generally recommend that you always use a yarn needle to weave in your ends. But again, this is a unique project. This is something that as a gift card holder, you know, it's not going to be probably used and fondled every day of the year. You know, you're going to pull it out, use it, pull your gift card out, admire how cute it is, and probably then gift it to someone else. So I would say you can cheat a little bit for this one and work over those ends if you prefer, because it's not something like a blanket or a piece of clothing that's going to get the same sort of wear and tear where you need that end to be quite as secure. So that is totally up to you. And we're continuing to work across. There goes my furnace. I don't know if anybody else could hear it. Furnace just kicked on. It is definitely the season for this sort of project. Any other questions popping up, Allie?
I am just going to say a reminder that this class will be available on Michael's YouTube starting tomorrow.
Okay, great. Yes, and the written pattern, where would we recommend they get that for this one?
I will drop it into the chat right now, but you can
Awesome.
also find that on yarnspirations.com as well.
Awesome. Oops. Should not have given that a tug. There we go. All right. That one's kind of goofy because I wasn't intending to work over that end right there. So normally when you work over the ends, you'd want to do it in the next row, not several rows in. But we were just trying to get that demoed here today. So I'm pulling up more yarn as I go here. And Red Heart with Love, sorry, had a little space moment there. Red Heart with Love is not officially a center pull ball in the same way that Red Heart Super Saver is, but I will say I do have good luck pulling from the center with this yarn. It seems like a lot of times I get people asking about that a little bit, so wanted to cover that as well. So we are almost there. Let's see, we have our 4 rows. There we are. So you can see again, look for those little furrows. Get that to focus a little better. There we go. Look for those little furrows. You've got 2 rows there and 2 rows there. So we can count all our rows. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 rows made. So that takes us through that entire side of our little pouch there. So again, it's time to cut the yarn and pull that yarn end through to secure it. There we go. And now we have got our nice rectangle. Now this is where you would pull out that yarn needle. And these come in several different styles, just like hooks. Sometimes they have a little bend on the end. Sometimes they are completely straight. But the main thing is that they have great big eyes in them, big enough to fit yarn through there. And they're also not super sharp. This one's that one's actually a little bit sharp, but generally speaking, they aren't super sharp because you want them to go in between the different pieces of the yarn rather than through the yarn itself. So to weave in your ends, whatever style of needle you are using, you would simply put the end in the eye of the needle, like so. There we are. Then decide which one's going to be the front and which one's going to be the back. It's totally up to you, especially with a pattern like this. Since I've got this little end sticking out here that I worked over, I'll decide that will be the inside of my pouch. So to weave in that end, what I want to do is insert my needle basically into those stitches. And it's hard to show when you're going inside something, and the point is not to be able to see it. But you really want to basically just run the needle right inside those stitches and then gently pull it through, like so. So ideally, you wouldn't be able to see what I've done from the front or the back. Now we're using the same color yarn here, red on red, so it's not going to show up very much anyway, but we still want to just do our best to insert that needle so that our stitches don't, so that our end that we're weaving in doesn't show. So you can stick the needle in there and check it on the back. Make sure you can't see it. We're in a good spot. So you can pull that on through. And then once you've gone a little ways in one direction, I really recommend that you work back in the opposite direction. And that is what is really going to help lock in those ends so they don't come undone later. So I'm literally headed back in the opposite direction from where I came. I just want to push the needle through there as best I can. Can't really see it on either side, so that we can pull that on through nice and gently. We don't want to pull so tight that we pull our fabric out of whack, but we just sort of gently pull it till it doesn't want to go any further. And then when you feel like your end is nice and secure, you can take your scissors and simply snip it off close to the fabric. And if you leave a little nub there, that's fine. It's going to be on the inside of our project. It'll be hidden. And in the meantime, it'll let us know that's the inside. So after you've woven in all your ends, then it's time to make the little buckle. So I want to make sure we can get to that and get through that and a little bit of the seaming. So I'm going to jump to that now. While I pull up my yellow yarn, Allie, did we have any questions?
I don't see any questions right now. I think we're all set.
Great. All right, so this is the buckle, which is the little, basically, yellow buckle. Doesn't actually do any buckling. It's all decorative. So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to take our color C, which is, I believe, daffodil. Yep, the daffodil colorway. Or you could use some of the other, there's more like mustardy golds and things, whatever works for you. Maybe even try one of the metallics. I think that'd be a lot of fun for this project too. So I've got my slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to chain 8, just as we were doing before. To chain, we've got the loop on the hook, doesn't count as anything, still on our hook. Yarn over and pull that loop through to make 1 chain. I need to pull up a little bit more yarn before I make any more. There we go. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 right there. There we go. So now I have made 8 chains. Now what we're going to do is we're going to join them with what's called a slip stitch, which you've done all these moves before, but it's going to create a ring. So we've got our little chain here, and we want to sort of basically bring it into a ring and insert our hook in that first chain we made. And this time, you can see, since we're working in there, we actually want to turn it so that those top 2 loops are on top. There we are. Let me see if I can get that to focus a little better. So we can see I've made the chain of 8, and then I inserted my hook into that very first chain we made, the one at the beginning next to our tail end, which is why I keep getting confused on my ends here. There we go. Then we simply yarn over with our yarn, pull through that stitch, and then pull right on through the other stitch on our hook. And that's a slip stitch. It doesn't add any height. You're just pulling a loop through all those stitches. And now we've got a nice ring that we can crochet into to make our buckle. I saw a question, would this be considered an applique? Yes, I think that, yes, basically the buckle is an applique. So we've got our ring, and this is all 1 round to make the rest of the buckle. We're going to chain 1, just as we did before, to get a little bit of height. And then we're going to work 3 single crochets right into the ring. So that means we're working into any particular stitch. And we're going to ignore for now this little tail end right here. Just kind of hold it out of the way or ignore its existence right now. We're going to insert our hook right into that space, just the big open space of the ring itself. Yarn over, pull up a loop right around that big loop there, and finish our single crochet. That's all there is to it. And that's the difference between working into a stitch or a chain versus what some would call into the ring or a chain space. It's the big space here underneath, not into the stitches themselves. So that's 1 single crochet. Now we need 2 more. So there's right into the ring again. 1 and 2. So now we have 3 single crochets. You can kind of see how they're right into that ring and creating a really nice smooth line right there. Then we chain 2. So there's 1 and 2. And this is going to form that little corner of our buckle. So then we go back into the ring for 4 more single crochets. Like so. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then We chain 2 again for another corner, 1, 2. And if you're getting a little too far around your ring, because you can see right now we've only really made 2 sides of our buckle, you can give those stitches a little tug to give yourself a little bit more room. Because they're worked around into the ring itself and not into individual stitches, they have a little bit of movement. Then we go right back in for 3 more single crochets. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Then we chain 2 again. And now we go back in for 4. So we had 3, 4, 3, 4 is what we're going to end with. And if you crochet over that little tail end as you're making these last few stitches, that's totally fine. So there's 1. These little guys, it gets a little fiddly to try and show here. And try and hold it as still as I can. There's 3. And that last one, got just enough room to get 1 more stitch in there. Go ahead and make 4. There we are. And then to finish it off, we're going to chain 2 and then slip stitch to that very first stitch to join. So remember, we've already done a slip stitch and it's just what we've done before. We just aren't adding any height. We're pulling the loop through. So that means we go under those top 2 loops, the first single crochet we made, when we put our stitch marker in, yarn over and pull through. And then finally, pull right through the other loop on your hook. And that closes up our little buckle. And now we've got our little square buckle. So what we want to do now is, again, we're going to cut the yarn, but because we're going to sew this on, you may want to leave a little more length than you normally would. We're not just weaving in ends here, we're sewing it on. So because we've made a slip stitch, we can alternatively, we could yarn through and pull through again to make that securing knot, or since we're going to be using this end to sew it on with, we can just lift up on that loop. And I recommend this for this part of the project because it gives a little bit smoother edge here rather than yarning over and pulling through again for a knot. Then we can get that stitch marker out of the way and come back over here to our one side of our finished little pouch here. It doesn't matter which one, these 2 pieces should be identical. You want to take the time to make sure, you know, if you've decided which one's the front and which one's the back, that you sew it to the front. But then you just lay it over and literally eyeball it. You don't need to worry about like counting or measuring. You just want it to be right in the center there over the black stripe. So to sew that on, I'm going to need to move some more of my yarn here out of the way so I can find that yarn needle. There we are. So we pull back up our yarn needle, and then you can literally use both of these tails that are already attached to sew it right to our project. So just holding it right in place wherever you want it. You can adjust this a little bit as you go too. Just secure it with your hands, and then we're just going to send that needle with our yarn right through. And I like to go under those top 2 loops, sort of maintain that line. You can go right on through your whole pouch, like so. And then however you like to sew it, and there's several different sewing methods. You can use whatever works best for you, whether it's a running stitch or a back stitch or just something you're sewing as you go. But I just like to come up under one stitch, go down under the next. Do the same thing in the corners, try and kind of catch those corners a little bit so you can sort of pull them into a corner shape with your sewing as well. I mean, it's yarn, so it's not hard, it's flexible. But we just continue sewing all the way around until we've gotten all the way around. You can, if you run out of yarn on one end, go ahead and add your yarn needle to the other and keep sewing around there until you've worked all the way around. And then you can simply weave in these ends again on the back. You can see these stitches are going to show, but this is going to be inside our pouch, so it doesn't matter too much. Like I say, just weave in these ends, and that's all there is to that. Excuse me. But since we've got just 5 minutes left, I wanted to make sure too that I covered the joining. So we're going to kind of ignore that one doesn't have it sewn on all the way just yet. And maybe also ignore that I didn't get the ends woven in on this one. But I am going to pull up my red yarn again. There we are, so that I can join these 2 together. So to join them together, you can see we've got our end here. It tells me this is the inside of this one. And of course, this would be the inside of that half. So we want to make sure that we put those together so that the wrong sides are together. We want the sides that we want to show on the outside. Then what we need to do is single crochet through both layers down one side, across the bottom, and then up the other side. We want to make sure we don't crochet through all 4, or well, that's how we end up with a pillow instead of a pouch. So I've got my end of my red yarn here, and I'm going to take my hook. And if you want to, before you start this section, you can use stitch markers to sort of match up. Of course, I wouldn't have all these ends in the way. There we are. To match up your stitches and rows, if you like, before you begin seaming, and that will help hold it a little bit more securely for you. So to start seaming, excuse me, we're going to insert our hook right along the side of our first piece, and then right along the side here at the top, where we want the top of our pouch to be, of the other piece. See if I can get it to focus right there. So we just want to go through the edge of both pieces. Then just like before, when we're joining a new yarn, we take that end, making sure we've got our end to weave in there again, and just lay it over our hook as if we'd yarned over with it, and pull that through, right through both of those layers. And it may take a couple tries. Sometimes I find that when I'm doing seaming like this, sometimes my hook wants to get stuck on the different loops as I'm pulling through, and that's fine. We just take our time and do it again. Put the hook right back in there, lay it over, and there we go. That time it came through just fine. Happens all the time, but you just have to take your time with it. And find that end there, yarn over, and pull through, and now we've got our chain 1. So now we can go right back in that same space, just as if it was a stitch itself. Go all the way through. And for this one, I do recommend, if you can, you work over that final tail for a little bit. Help tuck it in. And we simply make a single crochet, just as we did before when we were working into stitches, but now we're working into the edge. So working into the edge, I recommend that you try and work 1 single crochet into the side of each row. So that means for each of these little sections, you would have 2 single crochets. However, if you are having trouble reading your rows or anything like that, or you just find that that doesn't lay right, it doesn't really matter the number of stitches here, as long as you've got a nice looking seam. So if you're happy with the way it looks and you've got 9 stitches instead, or you have 10 instead, it is totally fine. It won't make a difference in the end. It's just a matter of how it looks. And if you like it, then you're all good to go. So we just continue single crocheting right down the side here. Go right through the black rows, just as you did the red rows. There we are. Wiggle those stitches through as needed. And then basically when we get down to the corner here, we're just going to work a couple extra stitches into each of the corners. There'll be 2 corners, one here, and of course one here. And that will bring us sort of around that corner, so then we can secure the bottom stitches. So you can see right there, I've got that one marked, so I know that's that last stitch there at the bottom. So I am going to put a stitch there, and then I'm going to go ahead and put another stitch there. And that will, as you can see, that sort of pushed us around the corner there. We're going around our piece. So now we're all set up and we can start working stitches right into the bottom right edge here. And because we used that back hump when we made our single crochets for that first row, we've got 2 loops on the bottom there that we can work under, just as if we were working to the top of a row. And this is a lot easier. You just want to make sure to match up those stitches 1 to 1 across, all the way across. Then when you get to that last corner, you can chain 2 again, single crochet up that final edge, and then break your yarn rather, and weave in all your ends. And that should be what you have at the end. Now, again, if you use those half double crochet stitches, your black stripe's going to be just a hair taller. But if you use single crochet, you still get a really good sized pouch for any gift card. So that is the basics of the Santa gift card holder. And I think we've got it just in time.
Yes, we do. Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you everybody so much for joining us for another Michael's Community Classroom. And I'm just going to be dropping a link here in the chat. So for all of you that want to watch the recording back, it should be available tomorrow or the next day. and you can get it at the link I just dropped in chat. Thank you so much for today, Tamra. Great
Thank you
class.
so much.
And thank you to everybody who joined us today.
Thanks so much for having me, and I hope everybody has a great holiday.
Wonderful. Bye, everyone.